So close, yet so far away. Because the Bible records the last time that David and Jonathan, who were like brothers, would see each other was when Jonathan was sending David away because Saul was going to try to kill David that night. And now we have David on the throne. Jonathan is gone, and so is Saul. And David's sitting on the throne, and he says, is there anybody from Saul's family that I may honor? This man who chased him into the cave, into different situations. I mean, David, the fight between Saul and David had gotten so bad that David ended up having to live with the Philistines. David, an Israelite, lived with the Philistines, who were sworn enemies of the Israelites. One more time. Saul, an Israelite, chased David so much so and so badly that he chased him into living in Ziklag, which belonged to the Philistines, who were sworn enemies of the Israelites. It got so bad that not only did David go from the home to the cave, but that wasn't far enough so that Saul couldn't reach him. So then he went to live with the Philistines and then to the throne. One more time, let's do this again. He went from living with his family, who didn't appreciate him, who didn't even invite him to the party where the sons were being looked at to be anointed as king. He wasn't even invited to the party, to his own inaugural party. He went from living in the home with his family into the cave with his men, with the Philistines, the enemy, then to the Israelite throne. And when he got on the throne, this man of God, right? Because the Bible calls David a man after God's own heart. This man of God asked, he says, is there anybody from Saul's family that I may honor? Because he thought back and he remembered that he and Jonathan had promised each other that they would take care of each other's families. They would take care of each other and each other's families. They would love each other like brothers, and they did. And so when the time came, Jonathan was gone, but David honored his part of the deal. Although Saul, Jonathan's father, had caused David so much anxiety that he was running into the cave. A sworn king, an inaugural king, is running into a cave to get away from him. He had caused him so much trouble, so much anxiety, that's running into caves. This same king, this man who was anointed to be king, asked, is there anybody from Jonathan's family who would automatically be from Saul's family? Is there anybody from Jonathan's family that I may honor? And David practiced benevolence in this. Because when time came, Ziba, the servant I believe the servant of Saul's family, told him, yes, there is one man by the name of Mephibosheth. And he lives in what? Lo-Debar. Remember that blog, y'all? Remember that? Lo-Debar. You were living in a mountain in a cave. But this man has went and found himself. Mephibosheth went and hid himself in Lo-Debar. Lo-Debar was known as what we would call the ghetto of that time. So this is a king's grandson. His plight is to live in Lo-Debar based on what? A song. Because that song struck such jealousy in Saul's heart that Saul spent the rest of his life chasing David to try to kill him. Such jealousy. This story, it's a beautiful love story because it's actually a full circle event. Because while David was living in Ziklag, we talked about this, while David was living in Ziklag, Ashish, which was a title I've learned and not his name, but Ashish, allowed David to live there, the Philistine king. And the Philistine kings came together and they were going to attack Israel. And so they asked David to stand alongside them. So now David is rubbing elbows, rubbing shoulders with the enemy. Now he has to fight. Now he is being asked, and he has to fight his people, fight against his people, while he's rubbing elbows with the enemy. That day, the Philistine kings got together and told Ashish, "We don't trust David. Send him back home." So David ended up going back home, and he was very grateful because he did not want to fight his people. He was going to fight his people if he had to, but he did not want to fight his people. So he went back home. And that was the very day that Saul, Jonathan, and Saul's other two sons died. They died in war. All because of Saul. You ever had a situation where you say, okay, but that happened, but that was all his fault. It was all Saul's fault. I know I'm jumping all over the place because I'm trying to give you a picture of the turmoil that's going on when you have it's almost as if I am I have a brother that passed away, my older brother, and I have a little brother, and I have two sisters, and I'm in the middle. And it's what the story is a picture of is it's almost as if my little brother has an enemy who's fighting him. And it's almost as if I'm chased by my little brother to be made to join, to so much so that I feel that I can only join forces with the enemy that's chasing him. So I end up fighting or in line to fight against my little brother because I'm forced by my little brother, by him chasing me, to go stand with the enemy. And this was David and Saul's situation. So Saul ended up dying that day. And Mephibosheth, poor Mephibosheth, he was a baby. The story goes that Mephibosheth was still being nursed because he had a nurse. The nurse was holding him. And my contention is he couldn't walk because the nurse was holding him. You don't hold a baby, or you don't hold, you can hold a baby that can walk, but you don't hold a grown man. So he was young. My contention is if he's a young man, then, this woman was holding him. And the Bible doesn't clearly say how old he was when she was holding him, but she was holding him. And when the news came back to them that Saul and his 3 sons were dead, the nurse dropped them and ran and left them there. As far as we know, right? She ran. She dropped them and ran. And through this, he became crippled. Crippled in both his feet. Mephibosheth, who is living in Lodabar, is crippled in both of his feet because the nurse dropped him and ran. How he got to Lodabar, the Bible doesn't say. We just know that he's living there. And I love the story of Mephibosheth because he's crippled in both of his feet. And everywhere you see him depicted, he's on crutches. Everywhere you see him depicted in any type of artwork or anything like that, he's on crutches. And so when David asked Ziba, who from Jonathan's family is still around that I may honor, he's actually asking who from Saul's family is still around that I can honor. Because Jonathan is a direct descendant of Saul. And Ziba says there's a man in Lodabar by the name of Mephibosheth. And the beauty behind this whole story is that we've all been there. We've all been like David, in and out of caves, in and out of the mountain that we're supposed to be casting down. We've all been there, but we just can't see our way out of it. The Bible depicts Mephibosheth as being crippled, and it does not depict him as not being crippled or getting over his crippling in his lifetime. We just know that he was crippled when he met David, and that's it. And so David sends servants to go find Mephibosheth. And during that time, it was a practice that if anybody, and I believe this is why Mephibosheth hid himself in Lodabar, because who would look for the king's grandson in Lodabar? Who would look for the king's son in the ghetto? Right? So I believe Mephibosheth was being cunning when he hid himself there. But David got around it. David sent servants just like God. God will send when we are in our situations and we feel like our situations have crippled us. God will send and he will go and he will make sure that he pulls us up out of obscurity because he recognizes his children. He recognizes us when we need him, when we call out to him, when we bleat as sheep. Sheep bleat. Sheep cry out. When we cry out as sheep, God will do whatever has to be done to get to us and make sure he pulls us out of the hole, out of the pit. And so David, like that benevolent king, he is that benevolent king that went and got Mephibosheth, brought him to the palace. Mephibosheth stood before David and said, am I a dead dog? I'm nothing but a dead dog. Why would you come looking for me? I'm no threat to you. Your servant is as a dead dog, crippled. I can do nothing. I can't hurt you. I will not fight you. There is no throne that I can take from you. That is your throne. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. The am I a dead dog thing, he said that. I didn't say that. But the rest of it, yeah, I'm paraphrasing. Because that's basically in a nutshell that what he's saying. He's saying, I am of no threat to you. I am of no consequence to you. This is your throne. David stands up from his throne and embraces Mephibosheth and tells him, I promised your father, I made a vow, an oath with your father that I would take care of anybody in his family. So since I promised your father I would do that, I'm going to take care of you. The land that belonged to your grandfather, you can have. David was a conquering king after Saul. And since David was a conquering king, David owned the land that Saul owned. It belonged to him. But he reached out and he said, no, I'm going to give that land to Mephibosheth because I made a vow. I promised Jonathan. He honored his vow. That I promised Jonathan that I would take care of his descendants. So he gave Mephibosheth the land that belonged to Saul. And then he told Mephibosheth, you eat at my table, the king's table, every day. You eat with me. I love the story of Mephibosheth. This is just a quick synopsis. This doesn't even go in deep. But I love the story of Mephibosheth because Mephibosheth is a picture of me. I love it because his name starts off like that. M.E. Mephibosheth. Right? M.E. Mephibosheth. Me Mephibosheth. So me Mephibosheth is Mephibosheth. Me Mephibosheth is me. Me Mephibosheth is you. Anybody that describes themselves with a me, we could put ourselves in Mephibosheth's shoes. Because his life was a mess. Until the king came in. He came before the king shaking, expecting to be executed. But the king came in. And when the king came in, he gave him everything Things that he did not even deserve. He did nothing to deserve. Mephibosheth did nothing but be born. And he received Saul's land.